Just remember, you can check in, but you can't check out. What's going on, guys, and thank you so much for joining me on yet another unprecedented video. So, Motel Hell came out in 1980, was directed by Kevin Connors, and stars Rory Calhoun and Nancy Parsons as Vincent and Ida Smith, two seemingly friendly farmers who kidnaps unsuspecting travelers, buries them alive, using them to create the special meat that the siblings are famous for. I do remember watching this way back, must have been 10 or 15 years now, I can't remember, it's been a while. And I all of a sudden seen it, Scream Factory released it, I just purchased it, and I wanted to do a review, and my feelings really hadn't changed since the last time I watched it, since the very first time I watched it. So let's get on with the positives as usual. First and foremost, the atmosphere is very dark. It had a very dark tone. It was chilling at times. I'd kind of compare it to Psycho and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I'll explain why that is later, but it had plenty of dark humor. I kind of got myself chuckling in some parts. I don't think this movie meant to be like a full-blown horror slasher, but it is. It's just not your standard slasher, but I did find some eerie moments in it. I like the plot, the fact that these farmers are planting these people buried alive and their heads poking out like tree plants. They kind of treat them like plants, and they cut their vocal cords. That was kind of eerie while they're alive, but they're all doped up with laughing gas or whatever. I thought that was pretty creepy. If you want to feel creeped out, that's something that if you're watching a slasher, you want to feel that, and I felt that, especially in those scenes. And of course, I dug the whole cannibal vibe, which is why I compare it to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Plus, it did have a little bit of a chainsaw fight scene at the end, which I kind of compared it to the end of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, between Dennis Hopper and Leatherface at the end of that film. A scene did happen like that at the end of this that was comparable to that. And the whole Psycho vibe is because they ran a hotel. What was Norman Bates' job? He ran a motel. So that's why I compared this film to both Psycho and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Plus the fact that these people that get their vocal cords cut, they kind of sound like zombies. You close your eyes, you watch those scenes, and you'd swear you were watching a zombie movie, but they're not. They're just live people that just got really messed up. Kind of like the people in The People Under the Stairs. Those are just normal people, but they look more zombified than the people in this film. But again, they were still normal people. All about deception. The villains were great. As mentioned in the plot, they seemed friendly. They seemed nice. Just your average country folk, which is where this took place at, is in the country somewhere, I forget where, but it was in the country, like kind of in the middle of nowhere, which is why these horror movies kind of succeeds. It's a perfect setting. Out in the middle of the country, nobody else is around to hear you scream. But back to the villains, they were pretty good. You get the sense as the movie goes on that something wasn't quite right with these people. I mean, you get the sense right away because you see what they're actually doing, like in the first act. But looking at them at first, you wouldn't really know that they're dangerous people, which makes it all the greater. Very unsuspecting. Great performances by Rory Calhoun. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. If I'm not, I apologize. I know I apologize a lot, but I can't help it. These actors has very hard names to pronounce. But again, very great performances. And Nancy Parsons as well. She gave a pretty great performance as the sister. The score was good. I liked the film's score. Every horror movie has to have that certain score about it that fits that particular film. Like Psycho had its own theme, Halloween has its own theme, Motel Hell has its own theme. I thought it fit pretty well. I thought Lance Rubin's work on the score really added to the tone and pacing, which brings me to the mix. As much as I enjoyed the score and how much I just said that he added to the tone and pace, I did feel like the tone and pace was a little slow at some parts. In some spots, it didn't really feel like a slasher, your basic horror movie, as I mentioned before. It just didn't feel like it was all there. It had some issues. It felt somewhat stale. It's like the film wasn't really sure of itself. But it tried. It just felt a little slow in some parts. And on to the negatives. This whole Terry character, the girl that the farmer picks up at the beginning and takes under his wing, I really didn't feel like that was any way necessary. It just felt useless. It didn't really help the plot that much, to me anyway. Now let's be clear, I don't have a problem with the Terry character per se. It just I didn't feel like she was necessary for the point of the plot. I felt like if they'd have just took her out and just focused more on the farmers and what they were doing and changed up some scenes a little bit, it would have been fine. And before I move on, speaking of this Terry character, this is the first movie where I found that the horror genre actually broke its own rule. The Terry character actually flashes her boobs. You see it all, full frontal, but nothing happens to her. The number one rule in the Scream movies, which came out like 20, 30 years later, is if you show anything, if you have sex, you die. That didn't happen to this character in this one. She showed everything, but nothing happened to her, which is the first for me because this movie came out in 1980. So it broke its own rule before Scream set it all straight. I just thought that was pretty ironic. The whole love interest between this older farmer and Terry, which she looked like she was in her 30s. He looks like he was in his 60s. That's a little weird. That was a little creepy for me. This guy had to have been like 20 or 30, maybe 40 years older than this girl. And I don't know, to me that's like close to like an older gentleman picking up a high schooler. Just totally weird. The direction felt sort of lackluster, and this kind of goes back to the tone and pacing and the way that they introduce this love interest between this Terry character and the older gentleman. It just felt lackluster. I just felt like it just should have been more direct. Like I said before, they should have changed up some scenes. They should have had more gore, which is another negative I have. Hardly no gore was in this. You do see like where they take the bodies and they chop them up and stuff, but you hardly get to see that much. I don't know if that had something to do with the MPAA or if they were intending it for this, but I just felt like they should have included a little bit more gore. It could have benefited it a little bit. So if you're looking for a somewhat mediocre 80s slasher film with some creepy, enjoyable moments, then this is the film for you. Yeah, it's spicy but digestible. So, Motel Hell, have you seen it yet? You must have. What did you think of it? Did you find it creepy? Did you find it enjoyable? Or have you seen better? Leave me your comment down below and give me your thoughts. Stay tuned for more videos and reviews coming soon. Like, subscribe, and comment if you hadn't done that already. And I'll see you on the next video, I hope. Peace the rip out.